I am going to beat you into the living death.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Walkout Network. It's your man Ant Walker here with the latest edition of the Living Death Show. Of course, I'm going to introduce the two gentlemen who sit to the side of me. You know them very well. We don't have to introduce them, but we love them so much, we're going to do it anyway. First up is the jack of all trades who has mastered them all, the senior editor of SureDog.com, the big homie Ben Duffy. What's going on, Ben?
Hey, I'm doing really well. It is good, as always, to be with you guys on a, Monday afternoon.
Absolutely. And of course, the associate editor of SureDog.com, the man who comes with the facts, the stats, the figures, and the numbers, anchors the panel every week, my good friend, Jay Petrie. How you doing, Jay?
I feel like on a slow fight week, sometimes it's good to be able to have time to sit down together and just blah and kind of get all of this fight mind and fight energy out. So I'm always happy to be sitting with you guys to vomit out stats and knowledge and very angry thoughts about one championship weigh-ins. We're kidding. I don't have anything about them this week. I guess we'll go with stat of the week, though, because there was a fight card that people paid attention to in Bellator. Bellator 285 went to Dublin, Ireland, and carried with it 9 SBG Ireland fighters. So the stat of the week is 8, because 8 of those 9 fighters won in a absolutely, totally shocking. There's no way the matchmaking would set it up that way for local fighters to get 8 of 9 wins at this event. So yeah, ace stat of the week, because Bellators.
Yeah, why'd you fuck it up for everybody, Peter Quealy?
Ben Henderson's gonna Ben Henderson, man.
Yeah.
I tell you guys, and maybe I'll actually lead off the dance here because I have thoughts. 285 went down, and Ben Henderson did exactly what he's good at and had exactly the kind of opponent he could do that to. I mean, no disrespect to Peter Quealy, but he's not a power striker. He doesn't have a good submission game. He's a good everywhere, but not really great anywhere type of fighter that I know of. And Ben Henderson at 38 now, got a win. And then in the co-main event, Yoel Romero eventually sadly knocked out Melvin Manhoef. So guys, I want to know which win for these two fighters, because they were the marquee fighters, Romero and Henderson, which was actually more important? And what are you thinking?
It has to be Bendo over Quealy. The thing is, Yoel Romero had a very impressive performance. He does what he is very capable of doing, and that's just taking people and turning them into ground beef. Like that's what he specializes in, and he did that. But against Melvin Manhoef, like the guy who's been on his way out the door since like '86, like this ended up being his retirement fight. Thank God. I mean, I could have done
for now.
I mean, I could have done without the image of seeing Manhoef like laid out near death and getting elbowed. I could have done without that for real. Bendo, on the other hand, sustained this level of dominance throughout an entire fight against a younger, fresher opponent. And at this stage of his career, I think that's much more impressive. Like he out-muscled Quealy, he outstruck him, he out-wrestled him. I mean, he did pretty much whatever he wanted, and he was in enemy territory doing it. This card was built to hype up Peter Quealy. It was built to ignite, crazy reactions from the Irish fans. And Bendo poured a big old cup of cold water over the flames and put it out. That's incredibly impressive considering all that he's been through in his Bellator tenure and all the misstops, the starts and stops that he's had over that time since he left the UFC. Bendo clearly is the winner of the evening, in my opinion.
Now, Duffy, Ben Henderson is now officially over 500 as a Bellator fighter. He's 7-6. While Yoel Romero is on his first win streak since before he fought Robert Whittaker. And Romero's pretty old, and Ben Henderson's also pretty old. So yeah, which mattered more? Did Romero's actually show there's life in the tank, or is it Ben Henderson can make one more run for a 5-round split decision loss?
Here's a name you guys probably didn't expect to hear out of my mouth today, but Brandon Thatch done fucked everything up. Because he is the man a million years ago that convinced Ben Henderson that he could beat top welterweights.
Yep.
And that has turned Ben Henderson from a guy in the running for the greatest lightweight of all time into a what might have been story over the past X number of years. Because when he just like threw around and destroyed like 6'2", big welterweight Brandon Thatch, I think it changed his whole approach. He is in the Sherdog Slack, while we were covering Bellator 285 and our editorial team that's doing all the fight night duties is talking back and forth. The quietly brilliant Brian Knapp, longtime Sherdog features editor, gave the perfect analogy for his performance. He said, this is a Randy Couture performance. And it so was. Bendo was older, visibly smaller, and yet completely nullified this man in the clinch and with perfectly timed wrestling to the point that it made his striking better and just completely nullified everything Queally tried to do for the entire stretch of the fight, to the point that it was anticlimactic by the end, like a lot of Couture's best victories were. Like once you got over the visual shock of seeing him overhand Tim Sylvia or throw Gabriel Gonzaga, you're just like, well, this is just Couture just doing his shit again. That's what this looked like from Ben Henderson. Just, yeah, it's Peter Queally, but what a performance. Having said all that, it makes me so angry every time Yoel Romero decides to wrestle somebody. Like, why? Like Ant said, he turned a man into ground beef. The operative word is ground. He took a man down and elbowed him in the fucking face. If he had just, I don't care what a late starter he was in MMA. If he had just kept taking people down and elbowing them in the face, he'd probably be UFC champ right now.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
Like you make weight, you decide to wrestle, he comes out, ahead 2-1 in a trilogy with Robert Whittaker probably, and he's still in the UFC, and he's like, you know what I mean? Like, what a story of two guys that kind of tripped over their own feet career-wise.
Like he would have definitely gotten the Bisping fight. I'm sorry, Ant. I said this. We're talking about the Sherdog Slack because I was running play-by-play at the time for Sherdog. Is that I looked at this performance and I thought he could have done this in the first 90 seconds. This was the kind of thing that Yoel Romero could have done, and more importantly, to echo Ben's point, this is the kind of thing he could have done continuously to opponents that he chose not to do so. Now, granted, as Melvin Manhoef, who always had a history of those kinds of issues of what's the word? Any takedown that has ever happened. But Yoel Romero can throw guys around with the absolute greatest of ease. I mean, didn't he lift Phil Davis off the ground? Now, obviously lost that decision, but I believe he took Phil Davis down. He, short 5'8", 220 pounds probably at the time he, hit the stage, tossed around Phil Davis for a little while until Phil Davis decided to do his thing. He could have done this to everybody in the division. And can you imagine if he had actually fought Israel Adesanya aggressively to the point of, I'm going to get you down and this is what's happening? Whole different ballgame.
Think of how much success Kelvin Gastelum had punching Adesanya just because of the threat of the takedown.
Exactly.
For the longest time, he was the only guy who would really hit Adesanya cleanly in the face. And it was because Adesanya had to react to the level change.
Yeah.
I remember after that fight with Jan Blachowicz, and we were talking about how there was really no one else in the middleweight division that could do that. There was no one that could replicate that game plan. So, what Blachowicz laid out was just useless at 185. Yoel Romero is the exception to that rule. If Yoel Romero, imagine if the Blachowicz fight happened before the Yoel Romero fight. And Romero saying this is possible. That could have been a whole different thing. That could have been a completely different fight. I mean, let's also keep in mind like the greatest ankle pick gift that you'll ever see in your life.
Oh,
Of just he
doesn't even bend down. He just
he just reaches down like he's gonna tie the guy's shoe and snatches him up to the ceiling.
Yep.
I mean, that level of skill, strength, and dominance, to see him have these like weird performances, as entertaining as it has been at times, it's like, well, it's probably not the best path for your career if you're really trying to win a belt and really trying to establish your legacy.
But guys, I mean, obviously we know Yoel Romero has a lot going on in his noodle, and who the heck knows what that may be.
Or not a lot.
What he does is extremely intentional. I don't know why. Like, remember how I said my stat of the week was 8 because there were 8 winners in SBG Ireland out of 9? Well, the other reason the stat of the week is 8 is because all of the last 8 finishes for Yoel Romero have been in the 3rd round. Like, this is not an accident. This is not this is just how it turns out. This is an intentional act to go 10 minutes and then seek out the finish. And I don't understand it. Because he had the ability to take Melvin Manhoef down and maul him in the 1st round, and all he did was suffocate him. And then said, oh yeah, that's right, I can hit people. I don't understand. I truly don't understand, because I think of the guys he's fought in his career, and I think of what had happened if he took Paulo Costa down repeatedly. You know, you can think of those kinds of situations, and it defies description. Like, he is the weirdest 21 fight veteran I can think of, because you just look at him and go, there's no reason that you're doing what you're doing, and yet it works 60% of the time. It works every time.
You know what we're going to find out? The day after he retires, we're going to find out that he has an IQ of 180. He actually speaks English perfectly, and he's been taking the prop bet on 3rd round finish like his entire career, betting on himself. He's got like, $1 billion socked away. Like, this dude, I made the comment on Twitter that he's one of the 3 or 4 like weirdest people ever to be a high-level MMA fighter, and people came at me with like, well, what about this person, that person, talking about people with like actual mental diagnoses and criminal records. I'm like, no, I'm not talking about like Mayhem Miller or Vyacheslav Dotsic, like, threatening to eat people from his prison cell. No, I'm talking about like just people that otherwise, are apparently productive citizens of what country, I don't know in his case, but like him just like literally chewing the cage and then barking the least intimidating, like high-pitched bark. He sounded like a fucking Pomeranian. He sounded like the beginning of Who Let the Dogs Out, like that little sample. Like, he is the weirdest man. But maybe he's crazy like a fox, and those 3rd round finishes are our clue into what he's actually doing to us.
It's a long con.
Yeah, he's conned us all for quite some time. Like that. I mean, he could have just. The opening bell could have happened. He could have just done that to somebody with ease. Like, it's kind of reminding me of like John Jones's sort of his last run, where it's just like, why would you fight like that? Like, you won, but why would you do that? Like, that's how Yoel Romero has spent his entire career. And it's fascinating.
Like BJ Penn on tiptoes.
Yeah, it's just why are we doing this? All right, gentlemen. So. Let's move on a little bit, because Rizin 38 actually took place as well. So the other major event that happened in MMA over the weekend, except the biggest thing that happened at Rizin 38 was not MMA, it was boxing. And once again, the TBE, Floyd Mayweather, he conned a lot of money from people. He had a quick, was it like 2nd round knockout?
End of the 2nd round, they waved it off.
Yeah. How long does this keep happening? Like, how many times does he collect paychecks specifically from Rizin? For this love this showing.
I love this, because the lesson you learn is an exhibition against Floyd Mayweather Jr. is exactly as serious as you want to make it. Like, it's the exact same thing that happened to Tenshin Nasukawa on New Year's Eve a couple years ago. Like, They act all starstruck to be boxing with Mayweather. He is happy to oblige them with a, let's move around. Let's, throw some jabs, a couple little body shots. The Japanese guy decides to go hard, and Floyd is happy to oblige by absolutely clowning them until he knocks them the hell out. And then they act all like surprised and like personally like hurt, that they got embarrassed by one of the greatest boxers of all time. It's like, did you think because he had like a low stoppage rate in 20 years of fighting, the best fighters in the best weight range in boxing, that he couldn't knock you out? Of course he can knock you out. Power's the last thing to go. Like, I love it, actually. I'm here for it for as long as he wants to keep doing it, and as long as Rizin wants to keep funneling him those yen. Like, go get yours, Floyd. For a guy who's retired, he is still making a hell of a lot of money with boxing gloves on.
Dude, like the reports are saying anywhere from 15 to 20 mil. Now, A, B, and C, where the hell is Rizin getting this money if they're struggling to, I don't know, make international pay-per-views available to the world, and because they don't want to pay the people that are going to do commentary for them? Like, how is Rizin shelling up this money to throw this guy? There is no way, and I'm going to say this confidently with absolutely no knowledge of the books and how the financials are going into it, there is no way there is a $20 million return on investment for that fight. No, not happening. It's a $30 pay-per-view internationally. I can't imagine a crazy amount of people tuned in to be like, oh man, Mikuru Asakura, boy, what a stud that kid is. A former title challenger for Rizin, the second best Asakura brother. What is the appeal here other than Floyd?
That's the third best Asakura sibling.
Yeah, I mean, what, Kana?
Yeah.
I don't know if she's related, but anyway, yeah, it's just, it doesn't make sense. And yet it makes all the sense in the world because, of course he's doing that. Of course that's what's happening on Sunday. Floyd's boxing a former street fighter who is, he's pretty good. That's the best way. And I'm being charitable. I've watched every Rizin card except for the secret ones. And I mean that. The secret ones where they were recorded, we don't know where, very possibly in an underground aqueduct, because I didn't know those things were, I thought that was a term that aqueduct was above. Anyway, Rizin.
I think that's just a sewer at that point.
Basically, yeah. It was a very strange explanation we got, and we never got to see these fights. A few of them are on YouTube. I don't know what Rizin's plan is, because if you're throwing 20 mil at him, you're saying to your fighters, you're not as important as this freak show super thing we can drag over every couple of years. And Sakakibara said, let's do it again. And Floyd said, let's do it again. And Manny Pacquiao was paid six figures to walk in there with a suit and talk for 3 minutes and say, yeah, thank you for having me. And then get up there afterwards and say, I'd love to come here again. And everybody went, oh boy, Floyd versus Manny. I don't care. Do you guys care? And do you care?
I care in the sense that this is comedy. This is pure comedy. Floyd Mayweather, for pretty much the entire run of his nickname being Money, he purposely conned boxing fans. Every single time there was a fight coming up, no matter the skill level, the skill disparity between he and his opponent, no matter how much aggression they came in or the trash talk beforehand, it didn't matter. Floyd was going to do the exact same thing he always did, and that was do his best to not get touched. And when he realized he was better than you, and we realized, and for sure, it's like, I can do whatever I want. He did whatever he wanted for the entirety of 12 rounds. And everyone crying about how boring it was. And you know what you did next time he fought? You bought it again. And you know what he did after that? You bought it again and again and again and again and again. And when that con ran out, and he had those in comparison to his previous fights, low numbers for the Andre Berto fight, he said, you know what? There's a whole other group of suckers out there that have yet to give me their money. So let's see what these MMA guys are talking about. Let's see how much money I can get off of these bozos. And you know what he did? He called up Conor McGregor and said, hey, let's con them again. Let's run our con. He collects he collects a near record amount of money for that fight, and it's like, man, there's more out there. Let me find these other bozos out here in the world that will give up their money. So he went over to Japan and he kept getting their money, and they keep on handing him a check. So why not? And the funniest thing about it, if this is going to be like a thing with Rizin, where they're like having Manny Pacquiao there, the first thing I thought was like, is Manny going to do one of these fights? Please do. Please do, because I would love to see someone like a Manny Pacquiao, the way he thinks, in one of those exhibition fights, because Manny ain't going to play to the crowd. Manny's just going to knock your head off. And if you are stupid enough to jump in that ring, being a subpar boxer as an MMA fighter or as a kickboxer against one of the greatest to ever lace up a pair of gloves, you kind of deserve whatever's coming to you. Like, I mean, if you are dumb enough to jump in the ring with Floyd and think you're going to win when you are not even a boxer, and then you want to get cute and you want to hit him hard, I mean, I pray for you. And I'm definitely not going to be up here talking about how Floyd Mayweather being a good person or anything like that. This is completely separated from him as a person and what a lot of things he does represent. But good Lord, keep the grift going. If people are lining up, waving their money around to give it to you, take it. I see nothing wrong with this. And
you nailed it. And not only has he like gotten this grift going for so long, he's managed to shift it, because the last 10 fights of his boxing career, so many of those buys were just hate watches. Like, I want this to be the guy that really knocks out Floyd because I hate him as a person, or I hate what he's done, or I hate what he stands for, whatever, and just got suckered in over and over and over again. Then he moves over to McGregor, and it's like, I'm going to get all these MMA guys that think one of the best boxers in MMA is going to be able to lay a finger on the best boxer defensively that we've probably ever seen. Then he's going over and getting these Japanese cats. It's pretty amazing. And for what it's worth, these exhibitions have been a lot more entertaining than most of his actual boxing title defenses.
Yeah, I think that was one of my bigger takeaways. Is that was more entertaining than it was supposed to be. That had any right to be. And let's be clear, Mikuru Asakura, just to set the record straight, over the last 5 years, Asakura's last 4 knockouts have been head kick, flying knee, head kick. Where, I mean, he might have finished the job when the fighter hit the ground, but the finishing strike has not been by his fists, and yet he's like, yeah, I can hang with Floyd Mayweather. But here's the crazy thing: for about 40 seconds of the second round, he did. He clipped Floyd. Floyd was swelling on his eye afterwards. It was not just a total one-sided hilarious drubbing, in that Floyd got hit probably harder than like Berto hit him, which is actually kind of crazy to think about.
Oh, well, Jay, what you saw was Floyd not trying.
That is correct. He probably didn't even train for it.
Didn't warm up.
I give you that.
Yeah.
No, I mean, saw him kind of go.
Yeah.
I mean, this was like with the tension fight. Didn't he like go to Burger King?
Yeah.
On the way to the arena.
I'm so happy you reminded me. Thank you for reminding me. Oh my god. We were watching Ben and I were watching the show on Sunday night / morning or whatever, and the camera is back and forth. It's jumping between old footage and stuff, and it cuts to the dressing room, locker room, wherever you want to call it. That Floyd's kind of doing thing, and it pans to the side, and obviously he's got his ridiculous amount of people, and there is a long table
of
full of KFC chicken buckets. We're talking a dozen at least, just lined up on the thing, just absolutely remarkable. And that was the warm-up food. It's not heavy or anything.
Yeah, I mean, this is and the thing I find even more hilarious about that, he's rubbing it in everyone's faces.
Oh, yeah.
How silly this is, and they still keep lining up to give him all this money.
The crowd was. This was the Saitama Super. We've seen a lot of historic shows there, packed to the gills.
Yep.
When Super Rising ended and the intermission that was horrible, by the way, which was an intermission with a bunch of concerts that they wouldn't let the audience pay-per-view hear, I'd say
I took that as a blessing. I saw like three like Japanese dudes in fur coats like walking around the ring, like clearly rapping. I'm like, I'm good.
I do too, but apparently Tenshin Nasukawa tried, and that's what I would have liked to hear, because what the heck is he doing? But the point is, when it came back from this intermission and Ryzen 38 started, because it was kind of a double header kind of situation, I'd say maybe it was 75% full. Like, it was never full again. People came to see Floyd fight, and then, there's 7 MMA fights? Ayaka Hamasaki, one of the best to ever do it in her division. Kyoichi Horiguchi, former champ, getting back in there. Screw him. That was remarkable to see the building not full from the MMA fighters that you figure they would show up to see, because they're the home country heroes. Horiguchi, Hamasaki are headliners in Ryzen, and yet people came to see Floyd and left afterwards.
Ryzen attendance number 23,105.
Woo! That is a massive number in the Saitama Super.
Yeah, that's basically capacity.
Yeah, I mean, if that's the case, I mean, that explains why Ryzen is still booking Mayweather. But at that price tag, I wonder how much are they actually making. Floyd has always come to the negotiating table with every advantage. So is he getting a cut of the gate too? Probably. He might be getting cut of concessions and everything else.
I mean, his purse alone, like the gate wouldn't make that.
No.
Yeah.
Like this event went into the red to pay him. If he made $10 million, this thing went into the red for him hard.
There's I figure gate attendance, you figure there's 23,000, average tickets 100. Yeah, I mean, we're talking like gate and including concessions, everything, three and change. Mm-hmm. And then pay-per-view is $30 a head. If we go crazy and say that there were, I don't know,
like 500,000 buys or something.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, that's only 15.
Highly exaggerated number, yeah.
Yeah, even if like, that's a lot, by the way.
Yeah, you might have broke even not including the other fighters' pay and
seriously, if
insurance and everything else.
If we're just playing numbers here, and we're saying that 500,000 people bought the pay-per-view on Fight, which there's no way, but okay, and we're saying a $3 and change $1 million gate, that combined is less than the high number, or the high mark of Floyd's reporter purse alone. Like, that's 18 and change mil. He made 15 to 20. Probably are on the higher side because it's Floyd Mayweather. How do you survive?
I mean, unless like the Ryzen execs are taking their money and like betting on it or something to multiply it. And Mayweather is about as sure as a bet as you'll ever get in combat sports. So I don't know, but hey, if they are lining up to give him money, keep your hand up there, bro.
It was an exhibition, so I don't know if many lines were open. The only one I can find is Bet365, and Floyd was a 2,500 favorite.
Yeah, so like you'd have to throw like $1 billion to make to make $15. I don't know, man. It's if it keeps happening, I'm okay with it, because this is actually like a good career path for a retired fighter. Like I'd rather not see Floyd Mayweather out there trying to box, Terrence Crawford or something.
I don't want to see it, but I really do.
I'm sure you get some like, the people who like, movies like Hostel and Saw, whatever.
Exactly. I'm all for it.
Like,
Give me human centipede stuff.
Chris would be all for it. Like she'd be all for it. But man, I don't know, man. If they're going to keep lining up to give him this money, take it. Take it. There are a lot of retired fighters who are doing a lot worse. I just saw a video went viral. What was this, like a couple months ago, if that? It was former British champion. I can't remember his name, but he ended up going viral for like as a bouncer. He's knocking somebody out at outside of some club or restaurant that he's guarding. And like this is like a boxing champion, and he has to work as like a bouncer at a club. I've been a bouncer at a club. It sucks, and it doesn't pay much either. This was a boxing champion. I'm just a guy who took a few classes. Like you're talking about a boxing champion as a bouncer. Mayweather is definitely doing the right thing if you're going to keep this Grift alive.
Maybe it's like a Roadhouse, like he's doing research for a new Roadhouse movie. What? Okay, but here's the thing: you got Asakura, and now you have footage of him getting clowned. Granted, exhibition, boxing, a whole bunch of different things going into it. You now have one of your stars. I mean, probably top 5 guys. He's headlined multiple events for them, getting clowned in his last fight. Before then, they had Tenshin Nasukawa, the kid, undefeated as a kickboxer, undefeated as a mixed martial artist, just absolutely spectacular, getting clowned in the first round by Floyd, and he didn't take many more Ryzen fights after that. And then he had the match, which, whatever, that wasn't that good, but that's not the point. Are these kind of fights, is this hurting Japanese MMA? I mean, what do you guys think about the state of Japanese MMA right now? If that's the thing, if Asakura goes, I don't want a title fight, I want to fight Floyd Mayweather, and then that happens.
See, this is Japanese MMA sort of cannibalizing itself, in my opinion.
Okay.
Japanese MMA, if we look at Pride and stuff where they have champions fight non-championship fights, you know, it's potentially destructive to the brand of a champion. Like, Dan Henderson, if I'm remembering correctly, won the belt and then lost. You know, and it's kind of like, are you still really champion? So you devalue your guys, and then expect us to pay to see them later doesn't really make any sense. But it's leaning into the freak show factor that, and the pro wrestling antics that pushed Japanese MMA to where it was at its pinnacle. So it's like they've kind of just gone too far in the gimmick, without kind of keeping sight on putting on good fights. That's, you know, lost sight of the goal, in my opinion.
Is this just business as usual in Japan, Ben? Is this, I mean, because we've seen all these kinds of things. I mean, I think of this wasn't Japan, but I think of a historical example. Bellator light heavyweight champion Christian Mpumbu fought a non-title stay busy fight against Travis View a long time ago and got embarrassed as the champion, trying to be like, I don't know, like Kyoji Horiguchi lost a non-title fight to Kai Asakura. I mean, is this just a regular day in Ryzen, or is there something funny going on?
I think of it as more of a regular day in Ryzen. The stereotype, well-founded, of Japanese MMA during the Pride era is that they're the most beloved fighters. It wasn't really based in being unbeatable. You know, like Sakuraba was the poster boy for Pride, and you know, he was barely above 500 in the promotion because they kept throwing him at people like Roskoff and Vanderlei Silva, even though he like walked around at like 175 pounds. So you know, I don't think this is going to hurt Asakura too badly, and this kind of matchup is part and parcel of the particular spirit of Japanese MMA that Ryzen is explicitly trying to follow. Like Sakakibara, you know, just literally said, I want to keep carrying on this type of martial arts spectacle, you know, through Pride, through Dream, now Ryzen. Like, he explicitly said so when Ryzen started, and he stuck to that. It will always be a little puzzling to me because I come from the Western idea of MMA that's, I mean, it has a different relationship with professional wrestling, but where my thought is always, okay, the purpose of these promotions is to figure out who the best fighter is. And matchmaking that works towards that in some regard, like, sits well with me, and matchmaking that doesn't work well in that regard, it can provide entertainment value, but in the long run, it will lose my interest. You know, it's why I love Ryzen 4 times a year, you know, and I don't mind seeing the UFC, you know, 40 times a year, Bellator, you know, 20, 25 times a year. Just, yeah.
It always did. It always felt kind of like the cotton candy of MMA. Like it isn't a 3-course meal or whatever the heck. I don't know, gruel, I guess, is what we're getting this weekend for the next UFC card. But it's
like potluck night at the office where someone brought like half a bucket of chicken and someone else brought some fish thing that they made 2 nights ago.
It doesn't sound good.
Or the cat lady brings mac and cheese and it's got like raisins and shit in it.
Yeah. That's it. That's PFL on Thursday night. That's your. What am I supposed to do with this?
Well, definitely derailed just a tad bit there.
I disagree. I think it was right on target.
It's all good though, man, because probably a good time to go ahead and roll out a new segment here. So in the comments, tell us what you think of this. We're gonna change up the our timed questions just a little bit for the triple threat. We're gonna put 60 seconds on the clock. Each of us will get to discuss in that 60 seconds. So I've got the clock ready.
I hope you guys understood the reference that was trying to be made here.
I'm sorry. What
the reference of this segment?
We love Tanya Evinger.
Shout out.
Mm-hmm.
Houston zone.
Ah, see, I didn't realize she was from Houston. I knew she was from Texas.
No. She's from like Missouri or Kansas. She's from but she relocated to Houston. Like she was fighting out of War Training Center for her last couple fights, and now she's working in oil and gas.
Yep.
All right, cool.
Living her best life. Anyway, carry on, Ant.
All right, let's do it. So, Jay, I'll go ahead and start with you. Is 17-year-old 6-0 Raul Rosas ready for the UFC? Whoa. How come the sound didn't go off? I tested it when I had it on mute, and now I think this is like doomed to just like not work for us. Let's try this again.
R.I.P.
You know what? How about this? Ding.
Yeah. All right. Man, when I saw Raul Rosas come to the Contender Series, I was familiar with him because of UWC, and I knew he didn't really fight many guys to get to 5-0. He looked like a stud, but everybody looks like a stud when they're going against unmatched contenders. He looked good against Gutierrez, but as 6, what he is now, no. I want to see more seasoning. I'm afraid they're going to throw him to the wolves and he might get hurt. But I we're doing it.
All right. Oh,
next, Ben. No, everybody.
Cool. All right, Ben.
It's a free for all.
I'm a little higher on him than Jay. I'm thinking of other people that the UFC signed like extravagantly young. And I think he looks more ready for the UFC than Chase Hooper, who is still in the UFC. Yeah. I think he looks more ready for the UFC than Sage Northcutt, who went 6-2 in the UFC and was cut for reasons other than competitive, other than his competitiveness. Like, he's not, I mean, we have no idea how good he's going to be, but he's good enough to beat some UFC lightweights right now.
Yeah. I think in the current state of the UFC, yeah, he looks better than a lot of what we see on the prelims now. So, I'll take it. All right, so let's go ahead.
That was a proof of concept right there. Well, it's just a free-for-all segment, so that way the first person tries not to go overboard, and then the rest of them can kind of follow suit. That's kind of what I had in mind.
You're just trying to get us to bring out our inner Stephen A. Smith and just like bluster over each other.
That's exactly right. That's it. So, got me.
I see what you're doing now.
Can I be Shannon Sharp instead of Stephen A?
Come on.
Yeah, a cup of Henny and a cigar or something. I definitely don't want Stephen A's boxing technique.
Punch to the groin, left over the top.
And I'm a Krav Maga guy, and that's still a bad groin shot. All right, fellas. So next question. Eddie Alvarez, no longer with one championship. Where does he end up next? And ding.
Ben.
PFL. Eddie needs money. Eddie is, he is a walking, living legend. He still has a certain amount of competitive juice left. He certainly has the kind of highlight reel and legacy that the PFL can use to present him as a legitimate competitor. And they're kind of the last stop that really can offer him the kind of money to make it worth keep doing this for another year or two to, keep his 6 kids and impeccable eyebrow game going. Yeah.
I mean, he's sued pretty much everybody else that he's worked with. I mean, if it's not PFL, then go to Ryzen. It's the only place I can see for him. And I would love to see Eddie Alvarez with soccer kicks in Ryzen.
That would be lovely. I honestly wouldn't be surprised if we got a Coker reunion and he was back in Bellator. With Nate Diaz out there on the free market, I imagine someone might be trying to put Alvarez versus Diaz together. And if not, Alvarez versus Bendo. Yeah, that's kind of sexy.
I'm not mad. I'm not.
Yeah.
It's because he's so much cheaper than Diaz.
Yeah.
He's like Diaz is going to command a paycheck. Eddie's going to be a 125.
He's going to be the company guy on that.
Yeah,
like he's the guy who didn't take a pay raise to fight McGregor.
Exactly.
So he'll skip out on that payday. I mean, I wonder how he's done with the money that he made with one championship.
He kind of was happy, but
very, very well. The numbers that I heard were true.
Yeah.
Hope so.
Well,
I mean, he deserves it.
Should be interesting. I just think I don't think he's. I mean, he kind of fits the bill, but he's still kind of not a big enough name to get like a Paul brother fight.
Yeah.
He would actually fit very well in that and that sort of thing from an entertainment standpoint. But I don't think his name rings enough bells outside of our bubble. All right, so let's go ahead and ask the last question. In fact, we may not even respect the clock on this one because this if we did a show last week, this would have opened the show. Jose Aldo officially signaled that he is retiring last week. So how long does this retirement hold up? Ding.
I'm too emotionally invested in this. I'm speaking out of a place of hope and saying that maybe he just does the dignified thing and actually stays away.
You're so optimistic. I'm not trying to channel my inner Jed Meshew or anything, but he's 36 years old. He's still not at the top of his game, but he hasn't lost enough steps to be not competitive against anybody. He could go
He's a
over
top
right
10
now
fighter in the best division in the sport.
That's right. He could go over to PFL and probably beat most of the fighters tomorrow.
He probably easily
at 145.
That's what I mean. Yeah, at 145. He could go over at PFL and win most of that. And then it'd be good for him to get the $1 million check. But I don't think he wants that. I think I just think he's going to come back to the UFC. I don't think he's done forever. He was released, but you're never done. Not in this sport.
I'm with Ben on this. I hope he's done. Because what a great career to just wrap a ribbon around. But man, combat sports don't make it that easy, and especially considering like he had a son, I think the day he announced his retirement or the day before, something like that. I wonder what life is going to be like with another kid, another mouth to feed. You don't have the fight purse rolling in. I don't know if he gets antsy. I don't know what he's done with his money. I don't know what other ventures he might have outside of fighting.
He had a hamburger store.
If he gets that itch again, yeah, he'll be back. Yeah, he'll be back. Another, and maybe there's hope for the match that I always wanted to see, and that's Aldo versus Eddie Alvarez. Maybe there's hope.
Oh, Aldo coming back 155. That'd be really weird. I want it. I want it. I see it's more likely he's going to go like box like Popo Freitas or something, because there was an actual thing about that. I know it doesn't make sense. Who the hell am I talking about? So I will carry on and explain why. Popo Freitas, former champion Brazilian boxer. He I think he's about 140, 147, and he has recently bulked up to like 170 or so. And the reason why I mentioned this is all coming together is because there was an event this past weekend called Fight Music Show 2, and Fight Music Show 2 down in Brazil had a couple attractions, one of which was Chris Cyborg making her boxing debut. Now, here's the thing. It was Fight Music was not entirely sure if it was a pro fight, if it was an exhibition fight, if it was an amateur fight. I don't think they had any idea. and the commission, whomever it be, because it's not CAB MMA, because it's a boxing event, was kind of hedging and hemming and hawing for what it sounded like. And I love you, Chris Cyborg, so don't take this as a personal slight when you inevitably get wind of this. I think it hinged on the result. If she lost, it's an exhibition. Don't worry about it. But if she won, as she did, she won a decision. It is what it is. Now, she was fighting a woman that had lost like her last 9 or 10 boxing matches, and she was on like a 12-fight losing streak in all the combat sports. But here's the thing. Right now on Monday, so days after the event took place, she does not have a win on her professional boxing record on BoxRec, which is very up on these things right now. And they have everything. They have a boxing event in a Kmart parking lot. So this is BoxRec is the real deal when it comes to that. So I don't think this is a pro fight. Do you guys, what are you thinking about that? Does that make any sense? Because this was a big deal. This was Cyborg making your pro boxing debut as a Bellator fighter, and Scott Kirk was all excited. Everybody was excited. What do you think?
I mean, I think this was the culmination of everyone just fumbling this intensely. Like, this should have been a much bigger deal. Like, this happened without any real promotion, any real fanfare that I saw. The only indication that this was going on that I was aware of, I got a DM from Chris Cyborg, whoever manages her Twitter account, inviting me to the open workout in Orange County. That's the only indication that there was, and it was a boxing-oriented workout. That was the only indication that she was taking a boxing match that I saw, through the timeline and everything. So even with me kind of taking a step back from media stuff in the sport, like, I'm up on it enough to where I would have known that was going on if it had been promoted even remotely well. Like, they just fumbled the bag.
Maybe intentionally, maybe this, if we're being conspiracy minded here and saying that we're leaving the status of this fight intentionally nebulous based on the results, that would also be why they didn't make a bigger deal out of it publicity wise in advance. Like, I got the DM from Chris Cyborg's account too. Like, Evangelista Santos, your ex-wife, sent me DMs. But that was the extent of it, like, they kind of let industry, people know about it quietly, but this could have been made a much bigger deal of, and it wasn't. And that kind of leads me to lean in Jay's direction here, that they intentionally kind of left this up in the air.
And what's crazy, this event, Fight Music Show 2, which is partially in Fight Finder, I believe. If it's not, I'll make sure it is that it was a hybrid event of a bunch of MMA fights, and then they take the cage away, build the ring, or put the ring together, and have boxing matches. And there's like concerts, and there's the whole thing. The reason why this came to me, that I knew about it, is because Thor Silva was on the card. And he was making his amateur MMA debut, I believe at the time, Thor Silva being Vanderlei's son, of course, and he smashed the guy in the first round. And you figure that I would hear about that because Chris Cyborg, I heard about it, but I wouldn't have been able to point out and go, oh, this was on Sunday. No, and that is strange because it should have been a huge deal. And the other reason why it should have been a huge deal is because of the reason that I made the transition to begin with. Because the main event was not Cyborg. The main event was Popo Freitas, the person who I mentioned should fight Jose Aldo, the former boxing champion. They had kind of a tiff. Boxed Pele Landy Jones. And we know Pele, he's now almost 50 years young. He is one of Ben Duffy's best welterweights that has ever welterweighted. And for good reason, because of the accomplishments he had achieved in the early stages of MMA. I mean, look to his IVC and WBTCs and all of those great moments and experiences. Boxed Popo Freitas and got knocked out. And I'm not surprised, Mr. Falcon's segment. I'm jumping over Ant's glorious introduction because I'm a bad friend. because what the hell is Pele Landy Jones doing going to a boxing ring at about 50 and getting smoked by a guy that is a lot smaller than him? What are we doing? Is this what is this celebrity boxing fighter versus boxer thing? This is sweeping the world. And that kind of bugs me, because I don't know if I'm going to want to see Junior Dos Santos in 5 years boxing against some heavyweight. I don't know who the heavyweight champion in Brazil is, but a legitimate Brazilian heavyweight getting bonked in the head. And it made me feel really funny things where I thought, oh my God, Pele's fighting in boxing against a former champion boxer that hasn't lost a ton of steps. He's getting older, but he's still there. I don't know, man. It made me feel feelings I didn't know I should feel. I mean, because this is the same card they had like a pop singer fight a YouTuber. Like, this is one of those events. And there we got Pele getting squished and Chris Cyborg winning a fight that didn't matter. So I don't know, Mr. Falcons. I hand it back to you, because I just don't get it. Like, 2022, there should be at least some, I don't know, not uniformity, but at least some kind of structure and method to the madness. And I feel like right now we're in the stage of just making it up as we go along.
I wonder if MVP losing to Mike Perry at BKFC has anything to do with this. If it's just like, we might have, sullied our star a little bit here. Let's dial back on the spotlight for these outside of the promotion exhibition matches. So maybe that was the thinking, but whatever. The footage exists, so we know what happened. All right, Ben, what's your I'm not surprised Mr. Falcons moment this week?
I guess I don't have one. I'm just too bummed out by the Pele thing. Just pushing 50, and I won't go into my full rant on Pele. It's on record.
I kind of want to hear it though, please.
Well, he was the original shoot box OG. He started training Muay Thai there. He was representing the school and the style in actual fights within 6 months, and he was the first guy to bring the shootbox name and fight style outside of Curitiba, just across Brazil, and then later internationally. Everything you associate with the classic shootbox guys. Muay Thai style with a heavy emphasis on knees and elbows and just psychopathic aggression. That was Pele, and he was the trailblazer. Like all your guys, Shogun and Ninja Hua, Vanderlei Silva, all point to him he was the guy that I patterned myself after when I got to shoot a box. Even his frenemy, Anderson Silva, who started out with shoot a box before he decided that I don't want to get hit in the head that much, acknowledge that. But he was a trailblazer for shoot a box also, in that he was the first guy to show what it looks like when a shoot a box guy turns about 32 and just all the tread is off the tires, and he's the equivalent of that 3-year-old car that's got 200,000 miles on it. He didn't need to be fighting after 35, let alone after 45, and this was just the most predictable thing ever. And Jay nailed it. It's just going to give us more and more bad stuff. I remember being stunned a year ago, when they had Frank Mir box Kubrat Pulev. I'm like, this is crossing into bad territory, where aged MMA fighters with a history of taking concussions are now fighting actual recently top ranked boxers. And this was another example of it. Popo is, a fairly recently top ranked boxer fighting a washed MMA fighter. And our next high profile combat sports death it's not going to come in a regulated MMA promotion. It's going to come in one of these things where it falls between the cracks, competitively in terms of matchmaking, in terms of regulation. I mean, we're talking about an event here that we got onto this topic because we weren't sure whether Chris Cyborg's fight was an exhibition or an actual pro fight or an amateur fight. This is the kind of fight that we're gonna, get our first death from, and everyone's gonna be like, well, whose responsibility was this?
Yeah, I couldn't agree anymore. This is very, very dangerous territory that we're going in. All right, I'm not surprised, Mr. Falcon's moment. I'm not sure whether to be surprised or not surprised, because the most plain, honest statement was given from perhaps the most dishonest person. He's probably not, in comparison to other fight promoters, he lies just as much. So, I'm not going to unfairly paint that picture. But UFC President Dana White has stated that the original matchup of Khamzat Chimaev versus Nate Diaz would have been really bad. Thank you, Mr. Obvious. Thank you for trying to make us pay $75 to watch it. Keep eating those donuts, Khamzat. Keep eating them. All right.
I'm just going to say, and that's like less than 3 months after he admitted that letting Shane Burgos go was like a terrible gaffe on the UFC's part. Like, if he starts telling the truth twice a quarter, like that's going to be dangerous for me, because it's going to keep my hopes up.
I mean, are we talking about the end of, like, nearing the end of Dana White's run? Because him being too honest.
See, that's why Joe Rogan came out and was like, if he's gone, I'm gone.
Yeah, he's like, oh, this guy's telling the truth a little bit too much with a microphone in front of him. Dial it back, buddy. Yeah, he's like, Rogan's like, hey, save the truth for me on JRE when I'm talking.
Yeah.
About how bad that fight would be. So, all right, fellas, let's keep things pushing here. Bellator, first time in quite some time. May, I think, was the last time they've had back-to-back events on weekends. So we've got Spike Carlisle and AJ McKee as the co-main and I think AJ McKee's 155 debut, and that is to serve as the appetizer for the champion Patricio versus Adam Borix. Well, no longer champion, no, the 145 champion. Mm-hmm. Yeah, 45. Yeah, I'm tripping. I'm kind of forgot about how bad that decision was that got him the belt back in the first place. But anyway, let's move on. That's actually taking place in my neck of the woods, like 10 minutes or so from my house in Long Beach. So what is the most intriguing fight to you guys on this card outside of the two aforementioned ones?
I'm going to take Duffy's then, because I'm going Archuleta versus Barzola, because Archuleta has been a criminally underappreciated fighter. He fought Pitbull for the title at 145, where 135 was really where he was better. He was better suited to that weight class. He beat Ricky Bandejas. He beat Dudu Dantas. You go Patchy Mix, I think is 135, right? Yeah, 135. He looked better, more well suited, and he's fighting Enrique Barzola, a guy. How do you describe a fighter who his entire UFC run, he went the distance every fight, and it was a long run. I don't know how you possibly describe that.
Exhausting.
Yeah, it was a tough ride, in that no finishes to be found, and he was cut on a draw or released or whatever you want to call it. Came into the promotion, smushed Arian Caldwell. Was like, oh, I can finish people. We're like, oh, really? Why didn't you do that ever in any time? And then he beat what was that? It was that Russian cat. Oh crap, Mikhailov. That trains with Fedor, and then he ran into Magomed Begimedov, the destroyer of worlds. So I'm looking forward to one of those two guys getting back on track at this event. But boy, oh boy, I tell you guys, I am more excited about the co-main than the main event, and that's surprising. Just because it's Spike Carlisle, because imagine of all the people, Spike Carlisle is the one who really upsets the apple cart. I can see it happening. That's the worst part. I can see a Shoryuken kind of thing, and I wouldn't be surprised.
Jay Petrie has lost his mind.
I have lost my mind.
Jay, the credit, Jay, I'll give you on that one is like just seeing AJ bouncing back from the first L on his record. Like, what psychologically did I do? I mean, this is a guy who is supremely confident. I won't. My interactions with him, I will say he doesn't strike me as like arrogant or like a jerk or anything. He actually seems like a really, really great dude. But confidence oozes out of this guy. Like he is a very, very confident guy, and that's no secret. I wonder if that loss has shaken that confidence in any way, or maybe looking at the judges, kind of screwing that one up, kind of keeps that confidence intact. I'm not sure, but it should be interesting to see how he responds to his first defeat, and especially with Patricio on the card. I mean, I don't think that is an accident at all that they are on the same card. So this is probably setting up a rubber match between them if the expected outcomes are to happen. I think I'll go ahead and highlight a name that we haven't heard a whole lot on the big leagues for a while, and he only had one real shot at the big leagues, and that's Max Roskoff, who is making his Bellator debut against Mike Hamill. It's good to see Roskoff, if you guys remember, was called in to a UFC fight night last minute. I think he's Vegas-based, so he got one of those calls into the Apex Center and quit on the stool against Austin Hubbard and took a one-sided beatdown leading up to him not answering the bell. So he bounced back. He got a couple of wins, I think, in Cage Warriors. And now he's back with a major American promotion. So just curious to see how he does. Any other fights we want to highlight, gentlemen, before we move things along here?
I want to circle back and use my time to say how crazy Jay Petrie is. Like, AJ McKee, they could not have given him a more tailor-made debut opponent at 155. Like, it will do wonders for his confidence to go out there and make peanut butter out of Spike Carlisle in the first round. And I'm not even talking chunky peanut butter. Like, there's going to be that smooth organic peanut butter that gets like the little slick of oil on top, and you got to stir that shit up before you can even eat it. Like, he's going to render Spike Carlisle like from one state of matter to another. He's going to make him from like a solid into a liquid. And that's before Carlisle gasses out. Like, Carlisle's not even going to have time to get tired.
Yeah, I don't see this one lasting too much longer. And then the fight right before that, I mean, we didn't mention Aaron Pico on the card as well. Another guy.
Speaking of a different state of matter, Aaron Pico is turning into human jerky. I don't know if you've seen his weight cut pictures, but you can tell that he has shared longtime strength and conditioning / nutrition services with TJ Dillashaw, because he's starting to look like flyweight Dillashaw. His move up to 155, like that of his childhood bestie McKee, is inevitable. He's got to be coming up to 155 soon, and maybe he'll do better there, man. Like, think of the things that have plagued Pico, because he is in some ways just kind of like the shadow, like, cursed version of McKee in so many ways. And how many of those losses he's taken might have been fixed by having 10 extra pounds of water in him.
Yeah, good point there.
It would help that chin.
And this will be like off the top. Like, as I'm looking at his record, I'm seeing.
It's on a long win streak now.
Yeah, he is.
If you still think of him as a busted prospect, you haven't been paying attention, because he's won 6 in a row, and some of them have been pretty good, but the old 22-year-old Pico would have found a way to lose even to one of those 6 guys.
Yeah. And it's not just that he won the fights; it's that he's fighting smarter. Like, he's not going in there with just piss and vinegar and trying to crack someone in half. He is very capable of doing that still. But that
0 knockouts, 2 submissions in that 6 fight span. He's not going out there just trying to punch Lee Morrison halfway across the cage like a cartoon character anymore. Yeah.
So I like to see this. I mean, he's got the Daniel Carey fight. I think was his
bound for his rebound. Yeah.
Okay,
first win
yeah, sorry,
after
he's got the knockout
two-fight
carry.
losing streak, and I was there for yeah. Well, he's got his last one was a knockout as well, but it wasn't. I don't remember it being like, absolute separation.
It was
from
a
consciousness.
wash. Yeah, it was just he had it. There's a 10-8 in there, and he gets him on the ground and just ruins him.
That's what I get for like
Uh,
throwing out shit without like looking at the record. But okay, yeah, he's still knocking people out, but it's mostly by accident. He is trying to take him down.
Yes.
Yeah, but it's just the using all the things that he's been working on, as opposed to just going out there and looking for the highlight reel finish.
Right. Like what he did to Henry
scary.
Corrales, just went, let's go.
Exactly. Like he just threw down in that. And he's gone out there and he's used his wrestling, and he's worked for position, and he's stalled against the fence. He's kind of done everything to show that he can do it. And that is pretty damn impressive and scary for a man as dangerous as Pico is in all these areas. All right, so we also have the UFC. I believe there will be a significant amount of overlap in the times that these fights are on. So choose wisely, because Mackenzie Dern and I'm going to screw up the name. So
Yan Xiaonan.
Yes, are in the main event here. Certainly not the most star-studded fight card that you can imagine here. No shock there. We talk about that every week. But what what matchups on this are catching your eye, gentlemen? Because we do have some potential for action here.
Yeah, this is not star-studded. This is like that potluck mac and cheese that's studded with raisins, more like. Oh man, this one is rough. I mean, we had Max Grishin versus Felipe Lins in the PFL title fight that never was.
I'll tell you one that is going to be either really bizarre and entertaining, or it's going to be really, really painful to watch. Alexei Oleinik.
Yeah.
I don't know, fellas. I'm probably flipping to Bellator when that's on.
Give it 3 minutes. If Oleinik doesn't find some really cool submission within 3 minutes, you are safe throwing your TV out the window.
Yeah.
Go to Best Buy, get yourself a new one, and maybe the fight will be over by the time you get home 2 hours later. Because that fight is going to feel so long that you're going to need a haircut by the time it's done.
Well,
Jay, anything that's
I can't say I'm excited. I can't say I'm excited about it, because this is not a card that draws much excitement. If I'm not mistaken, are the headliners the only ranked fighters in the card?
Randy Brown might be sneaking in there somewhere.
I don't know. No way. Not of like
In the UFC's rankings?
I mean, at best, and I think that's tough. Like, rankings don't mean everything, but they mean something. They kind of have some sort of relevance. No, he's not. Pajedo's number 15. So
that used to be ranked.
Yeah, there are some, like Jaime Barcelos, who was the number one bantamweight that we never knew. When I look at these cards and I go, oh crap, this is tough. It's a lot of, like, there's a lot of pink slips that are going to come out at the end of this event.
Sadiq Youssef is number 12.
Oh, Youssef is ranked. How about that? Good for him. And he's fighting. Oh, that's right. He is a newcomer. I look towards action.
just leave it at that.
Yes.
UFC newcomer.
Yes.
If you want the full story, Sherdog Preview's up.
Sherdog Preview's got you covered. I can tell you that. He's a New England guy, so I should be rooting for him. He's fighting Sadiq Youssef, so good for you. I go towards violence potential. I go towards hilarious just destruction. And I go to Mike Beast Boy Davis, and Vyacheslav Borshev, because one of them's their fight IQ isn't the highest in the world, and their aggression can be a little much. So it's going to be one of these two knockout artists will suffer their first career knockout loss. And I don't know who. I think Borshev is probably the favorite. I would have to guess that Borshev's the underdog.
Borshev's the underdog.
Borshev's the underdog. How about that? Yeah. So it's just a smash your toys together, and somebody's going to fall down. Or Alexei Oleinik gets a scarf hold in 3 minutes. However, Illegal TV is really squat neck, so good luck with that one too.
The Little Latifi doesn't have a neck, really. Like, you know, I used to have a dog that was like half pit bull, half greyhound, and it was impossible to keep a collar on because he had that greyhound thing, you know, where, yeah, like that's what it would be like to like choke a Little Latifi. It would be like trying to put a regular collar on my old greyhound pit bull mix.
And he's got like that bullet-shaped head too, so your arms are just like slide right off.
Yeah, he looks like Ram Man from the old He-Man figures.
Yeah. I was thinking Juggernaut without the helmet. Like,
okay, I'm good with that.
Well, Juggernaut with the helmet just looked like a penis.
Red Rocket.
Circumcised, because there was that little seam around the edge, you know.
Well, I guess the good thing is we're going to get Neto BJJ versus Body Snatcher in Joaquin Silva and Jesse Ronson, which is the obvious. What kind of fight of the night is this? It's
I don't know. Like I got
night.
like Dap the Shilla. No, he was like I don't know. Does Neto mean no in Brazilian? It's like, your name's Neto BJJ, and all you do is come out and try to clock people with like your overhand right. It's like,
I can't think of the last time he submitted anybody.
No,
it's so long.
Like maybe it's like just gamesmanship. He's like, oh, no, I've never trained grappling. I just named myself Neto BJJ so people, you know, would think I was about to take him down. It's like,
it'll be like a boxer getting like the USA Wrestling tattoo on his shoulder.
yeah.
I mean, it seems like
Jake, the constrictor Ellenberger, you know.
Well, Brad Pickett was one punch, and people be like, "Oh God, he's gonna knock me out." Well, about that.
It's like,
No, like they named him that because of how many strikes he threw around before he tried to take him down.
And really, like the most significant thing about this card is that it was supposed to have Cody Garbrandt and Hani Yahya. Like that. Oh. That's really the most significant thing about this card.
Oh, it was supposed to be Sadiq Yusuf versus Giga Chikadze. That would have been the best fight on the fucking card.
Exactly.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Oh man, we lost it.
Banger.
But well, now we got this.
This. We got potluck leftovers night. Yeah. Oof.
All right, I'm gonna ask you guys.
Mac and cheese.
I'm gonna ask you guys. Maybe you already have that one. I'm gonna ask you that one. Usually we only ask this about pay-per-views because it's the only time it ever came up. But UFC Fight Night 211, Dern versus Jan. What would you guys name this card if it had one of its old titles? Because best of the rest.
UFC Fight Night. Watch Bellator.
What is it? Not co-promoting. Broadcast competition.
Oh. Yeah. Counter programming.
Thank you. That's the one.
Yeah.
Contentzilla.
Yeah. This is UFC Fight Night clickbait. I don't know what.
UFC.
Do you see the poster that they have? The ripples of the poster.
Oh, that is the worst poster I've ever seen in my life. Like UFC Fight Night. Suck it, ESPN. Like that's
UFC Fight Night. These women are trapped inside one of those yoga balls.
Yeah,
like those that have like the concentric circles. It looked like they were trapped inside there, like Zod in the Phantom Zone. Like,
I thought this was like
11 escaping the Phantom Zone.
I thought it was a remake of Time Cop or something when I saw it. It's like
UFC
terrible.
Fight Night 211. How many fights in a row can we see if we can get like women to miss weight? You know, because they're trying to make Stoliarenko and Chandler fight at 140.
It's like really this poster looks like they just put it together and like whoever was the graphic designer, they just discovered a new filter on Photoshop.
That's it.
Click. Let's see what happens.
Cool.
Yeah. Trash. So, gentlemen, I think that'll do it for this edition of the Living Death Show. Big shout out to Ben and Jay. As always, you can find their pre-fight and post-fight coverage on SureDog all week. So check that out for UFC and Bellator. I'm probably not going to go to the Bellator fight. I'm not even going to front like that. I'm going to get a ticket. I'm not. Anybody, any of our friends watching this, if you're in town, let me know. We'll grab lunch or something. But other than that, you can check me out here next week. So Like, subscribe, share, tell a friend to tell a friend, tell that friend to tell more friends. Stay beautiful, stay positive, stay sexy.
I'll see you when I see you.
Peace.
Peace.